But I think that's going to be one of the topics tonight, di ba? We're going to talk to
Yes.
some people from
Yes,
ASCOM.
yes, yes.
Later tonight we
Right.
are going to talk
Yeah.
about that and ano. But in the meantime, on a more serious note, Bok, ano bang balita?
Ay,
Well,
syempre
siyempre,
yung
yung,
Masbate, Lindol.
yung lindol sa Masbate, may
Yeah.
isang patay. Pero ang sabi ng PIVOX actually, ang sabi ng PIVOX, they don't expect any earthquake stronger than intensity 7 dun sa Masbate area. Kasi madalas pala yung earthquake doon. So nakakapag-release ng pressure every now
Yeah.
and then yung fault line
Yung fault line.
to the earthquakes, which is actually a good thing. So they don't
Yes.
expect anything stronger than a 7.
Okay.
Although 6.6 is pretty strong, huh? That's
Yeah,
not
it's
a
very
small
strong. Kasi yung
earthquake.
Baguio 1990 earthquake was 7.8.
Mm.
Well,
So it is strong. It is strong. Pero nga, the good thing about it nga, if you wanna see it as half empty, half full,
Mm.
is that it will not go beyond a certain threshold.
Mm.
well,
Kasi nga,
ang mas nakaka-concern ay yung pondo. Ubus na yung calamity fund ng LGU doon, right?
mm.
Mm.
Oo. So,
And surprisingly,
yun
ang
na nga
dami nila,
nangyayari ngayon, no?
actually surprisingly, ang dami ng LSIs for such a small town in a medyo remote area. Kasi layo siya sa Masbate City itself eh.
Yeah.
May 114 LSIs yung Kataingan town, which is a town of only 50,000 people. So
Yeah. Oo.
it's actually surprising, di ba?
It's very big. You have to wonder how they're coping. And among other things, di ba parang people are always asking, 2020, ano pang ibibigay niyo sa amin? I mean, this is
Pero
the last thing
ang
people
sabi ni Mayor, pinalayan nila yung mga LSIs except for 6 who tested positive. The others, the 108 LSIs na according to the Mayor, halos nasa 14 days na ng quarantine, pinalayan nila.
Mm. But bukod sa
Hindi pa
magnitude,
tapos. Pinalabas na.
but
Malapit na raw, almost.
bukod sa magnitude, what was the intensity? How was it felt in Masbate?
Well, biyak-biyak yung mga kalsada, tapos some buildings came down, pero it's not as it's not as bad, at least on the appearances of
On
the
the surface, no?
images. It's not as bad as the ones that we saw in
Bohol.
mga a year or two ago. Di ba? Sa Mindanao for several weeks, sunod-sunod eh. And parang grabe talaga yung bagsak sa Mindanao. Ito parang hindi ganun kaano eh. I have the numbers here somewhere. Here, I have the numbers here. Hindi ganun karami yung sira. Siyempre, for a small town, paano na yun siya?
Oo.
Siyempre, nakakarado siya.
Kasi COVID na nga, lindol pa, and rainy season, di ba? Kanina nga, bumaha rin sa Metro Manila. So, ito na yung period. This is the time of year na medyo, we don't want to hope it, but we kind of like expect sunod-sunod na ang calamity, di ba?
Like sa Masbate, 14 residences yung totally damaged, dalawa ang partially damaged. So it's not, well, of course, if you lose a house, it's still a big thing. But from the big picture point of view, it's not as bad as some people were worried about.
Yeah, well, anyway, speaking of big picture, of course, the big thing that's still framing all of this and that's still framing everything that happens in the country, if not in the whole world right now, is still COVID. And that's still what the main thing we want to talk about right now. And tama-tama, our guests are ready. We have with us Doctors Antonio and Leonila Dans, clinical epidemiologists from the UP College of Medicine. Doctors, welcome to the Chiefs.
Good evening.
Good evening, docs.
Good evening.
Hi, Dr. Dans and
Thank you for joining
Dr. Dans and Dr. Dans. We were watching you. I was watching you kanina dun sa webinar nyo talking about your recommendations, but more importantly as well, your insights about all of these factors that are really making it difficult to respond. At the same time, all of the factors that we feel from experience, you now have a clear idea, and certainly these are the things that you've recommended already to government. Maybe you could just take us through your basic perspective now, especially now that we are re-emerging into GCQ.
Yeah. So Thank you, Robbie. Yung strategies na hindi mo namin sila recommendations in the sense na hindi naman sila sa amin lang nanggaling. No? These are, the plans were developed actually in collaboration with DOH, the NTF, the IATF, no? Kasi hindi ko pwedeng, wala namang kaming karapatan na sabihin sila kung anong gagawin. But we sat down and discussed the plans, and yung mga magandang lumabas during these past 2 weeks is one, yung development of the One Hospital Command. I'm sure you heard about it, no? Parang may hotline tayo, no? Para hindi na naghahanap ng mga patient ng hospitals from one to another. No? The other is hoping this will become not just for hospitals, but for the whole healthcare system. So a one COVID referral network. Kasi ang nalawang hindi lang yung sa hospital, kundi pati yung sa mga primary care, sa clinics. No?
Yes.
Saan ba ako papate? Saan ako pupunta?
Right.
Pangatlo yung natin, yung science. Kasi naiwan natin yung science for many years. Lahat na ng tao pwedeng magbigay ng opinion on what test to use, and what medication to use. So pinakilala ulit namin sa publiko kanina yung Health Technology Assessment Commission. Kasi yun ang kanilang specialty, yun ang kanilang trabaho, no? Salain yung publications and choose the technologies that are worth paying for our country. And then mabilis lang yung workplace safety, transportation safety, yung internet access, yan ang 4, 5, and 6. No? Kasi alam niyo naman, the big problem with internet access in our country, no? Yung mga mahirap ang walang access, and you need it for health. You need it for our data reporting. We need it for education now, especially. We need it for business, no? At tapos yung huli, yung social amelioration, which is running out. We need to look for other ways to help the poor who are suffering from this pandemic more than anyone else.
Yeah, Doctor, I gusto kong tutukan yung isang sinabi niya because that was an insight that, I didn't really occur to me. It's right there in front of us. In fact, we're, as you framed it, we're overwhelmed by it. But your perspective na, actually, one of the things that's confusing us is that there's a flood of information, there's a flood of science and findings, and therefore, if I understood it correctly, we need to be clear on, as you said, sinong tagasala ng finally pakikinggan natin at aadapta natin or pagtutuntungan natin ng polisiya. Could you talk a bit more about, because you cited a number about the number of papers out there, about how by the time dumating sa atin, we don't even know kung sino ang tumitimon nung mga findings na yan. And we don't even know kung ano na nga ba. I mean, how solid is the knowledge that we're standing on?
One of the things that we have to realize is this is a new virus, no, and a new disease. So, as soon as yung 2020 entered up, almost at the end of the year of 2019, doon natin na-recognize na may new coronavirus, novel coronavirus ang tawag. So there's so much new information coming in. Nung umpisa talagang hindi na intindihan ng marami kung ano ito. Kaya nga sabi nila, parang lahat naging eksperto. If you look at the information, that social media, parang everyone has an opinion, di ba? So everyone is saying na, take this, take that, ito magaling, itong test na to. So nagulo lahat ang mga tao, and even some of our policy makers, hindi rin nila kasi because nga bago to, almost impossible to know that, no? Kaya yung sinasabi kanina ni Tony na kailangan natin ng health technology assessment, kasi itong health technology assessment experts and mga technical group can actually help us, identify ano yung dapat nating paniwalaan doon, anong dapat gamitin ng gobyerno sa ating policies para merong evidence-based recommendations. Nung nung umpisa, April or May, nanghingi kami ng mga volunteers, and we had around 80 volunteers na technical reviewers. We started to do rapid reviews. We had 57 rapid reviews on different, lahat kasi sa Pilipinas, halos lahat uminom ng ganito, lahat ng vitamins, painom, no? So, for every, basta may bagong lumabas, ginawa namin yun and it's available online.
Yeah, but Doc, I mean, Doc, all of this time, neither the DOH nor the DOST had that mandate to basically be the one to find to say at every step na okay, at this moment ito yung tutuntungan natin na datos or ito yung tutuntungan natin na studies.
So, yun na, actually, this is the mandate of a council we reintroduced to the public this morning that very few people know about, yung Health Technology Assessment Council, which was created by the Universal Healthcare Law. Ito ang trabaho nila. Kaya nila yan. Yan ang pinag-aralan nila. Yan ang expertise nila. Salain yung 58,000 research papers published in the past 5 months. Isipin niyo yung 58,000. That's one paper every 5 minutes since January this year. So,
On COVID alone.
on COVID alone, and they can process that. Yan ang expertise nila. So, we need to, dapat kung may tanong, hindi na
Is
natanong
it
natin.
being used?
No, they were
Is
not.
it being used? That's the question, no?
Yung problema,
Has the government also referred to it when making announcements? How much is it maximized, if at all?
they're kasi undermanned right now, Lucy. It's a nascent council. They're undermanned. Alam niyo yung council niyan sa UK, that's called NICE, they have 400 reviewers. Sa Thailand, in HTOP, they have 80 reviewers, and they're able to process only 5 technologies a year. You know how many reviewers they have?
Dito, yeah.
They only have 10. 10 lang.
10.
Wow.
Okay.
To filter those
Oh, wow.
15,000 articles. So we need more support for them. And I think we're beginning to, academe has volunteered, no, to help them through, kami, mga walang tumulong, we can help them do the technology assessment. So we're now, disseminating a call for volunteers to do the health technology assessment.
But Doc, yung volunteers are of course good, pero I'm wondering lang, as a matter of policy, shouldn't government put more money into this council and put more teeth and more muscle to the council? Like I said nga, volunteers are good, pero di ba in the end we would need something that is stable and consistent.
Exactly.
And independent. Dapat wala silang...
Kasi ang tinatanong natin, yung mga manufacturers ng data, syempre they will cherry the information they give us. So, kailangan dumami. Mga sila panay job order ang members, mga transfers from DOH. So, we need more funds for the technology assessment.
Pero what will it take for that to happen? For more muscle to be pushed into that council?
Money. We need more, bigger budget. DOH has a budget.
DOH has to ask for the money to finance this. But right now, I wonder if they're even prioritizing it, no? And if ever, kasi yung budget ngayon, napupunta sa mga PPEs, sa vaccine, I would imagine, and of course, yung stimulus package. So, parang, isn't it too late in the day to actually form that and use whatever information that they're going to churn out? Is there something we can do now in the short term to actually collect information and verify so that we can use them? For example, yung VCO, is that really a cure? For example, hydro, chloro, whatever, yes, green. Is that something that can be used, Parang yan ang mga tanong Parang what can we really use?
Natuwa kami this past 2 weeks. I think our leaders are recognizing the need for that. Kasi na-overwhelm na rin sila. So may lumabas isang vaccine, but there are more than 100 vaccines being tried, di ba? Just we learned that the rapid antibody test where there's a rapid antigen test. No? So, ang natutuwa kami, recognizing the need. Hello. Yeah. So Secretary Vince Dizon, for example, is now beginning to field mga technology to us and asking our opinion on whether this should be technology that the government should invest in.
In the meantime, Doc, first of all, I'd like to acknowledge Ami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star is joining us as well. But if you take the latest development, science related, not necessarily science based, but science related development is the testing of the vaccine from Russia, the news of the government's openness. If you take that as an example, how ideally should government take news of a foreign government's claims about a vaccine? What should be the protocol if you had that council active and being consulted?
Iyan yung, we need to clarify yung functions, no? Kasi medyo naguguluhan yung ating mga kababayan. Meron kasing FDA tayo. FDA can approve you or allow you to market. So usually, kung may mga new drugs, new tests, ang gagawin is mag-a-apply muna yan sa FDA. But FDA can only approve for that technology, whether it's a drug, whether it's a test, to be marketed in the country, diba? Pero kulang pa yon na studies kasi kailangan i-monitor pa yun, i-validate pa. More studies are needed to check kung meron pa siyang other side effects. So pwedeng i-market, pero we will have to wait for those additional information, and that's going to be needed by the Health Technology Assessment Council para sila naman yung mag-evaluate, okay na ba itong drug na to, okay na ba itong technology for the government to purchase.
So FDA decides if we can market it, HTAC decides if we should pay for it.
The government
if the government should pay for it. So
doctors, considering developments in the past 2 weeks, yung balik natin sa MECQ, pinagbigyan yung time out na hiningi ng medical community. Are you encouraged na we're headed in the right direction now? Are we anywhere near, are we approaching flattening of the curve?
Well, I want to think not of first flattening the curve, but first getting our act together. And we are encouraged by these past 2 weeks because there is intense dialogue going on. Now, yung yung Healthcare Profession Alliance Against COVID, we can be the eyes and the ears of government. Kasi we're at the front lines. We know what if something's failing. We know if our patients are confused or getting lost. We know if the system is working, and we can feed that back. And I am encouraged because now there's dialogue between the heads of government and the front lines.
And
actually, I like what you said. I like what you said about frontliners really being community more than the health workers. No, can you explain that a little bit more? Community-based. Dapat yung ang tunay na frontliner, sabi niyo, ay yung mga nasa community.
Tingin po namin
so much
there are 4 lines of defense. Una, bawat tao. Kasi it enters through people so yun yung mga wearing your face mask and a shield and distancing and washing your hands, etc. Pag meron ng pinasok na tao, ang second line of defense is the household. The household needs to decide, may ibo yung anak niya, anong gagawin? I-test ba? Paano bang mag-isolate? Kasama dyan yung pwedeng dalhin sa isolation centers kapag hindi kayang mag-isolate sa bahay. The third line of defense is the community. No? Kasi sila yung magko-contact trace ng mga nakasama noong affected person or affected household. The last line of defense is the hospital. And if the hospital is getting overloaded, there must be something wrong in the first, second, and
first
third.
3 lines.
So, hindi kami ang frontliner. Kami yung last line of defense. Sila ang frontliner.
Right. Yes, yes.
Well, in
Naku,
the,
sana nga, ganyan.
in the coming weeks, ano po ang inaasahan yung makita from our government, from the side of the community? Meron po ba kayong mga, what are you expecting to see?
Well, so first, sana ma-activate yung yung COVID referral network, parang hotline where people can call so that they're not confused. And I think we're already working on that. And
Sino kayang magiging in charge noon, Doctor? Sino kayang magiging in charge?
And kasi at saka yung LGUs, no? Kasi ano ito primary care ito, yung unang pupuntahan ng mga pasyente, ng mga taong affected. Hindi naman sila diretso sa hospital or they have to go to the LGU, to the municipal health center or the city health center. So yun, una. Pangalawa, yung health technology assessment. Sana hindi na natin kinukuha yung science natin from manufacturers of technology. We need to get people to assess science objectively. Pangatlo, yung workplace and transport safety. Lalo na yung transport safety, sana may options. Yung poor, no? Kasi 90% of people in Metro Manila don't have cars. And yet, they don't have options. Poor ang public transport. And the DOTR is working on that, no? And improving safety. Dapat meron silang alternative transport like bike lanes and pedestrian lanes.
Yung sa workplace, mas magkakaroon ng malaking workshop para nga talagang tingnan nila yung mga recommendations nila at policies tungkol sa pagbabalik natin sa workplace, no? So marami kasing issue diyan kung sino ang mga pwede na makabalik sa kanilang mga negosyo at saka sa kanilang mga trabaho.
So kami na excited. Nagtutulong-tulungan para magkaroon ng best plan for the people.
In the meantime, doctors, napansin nyo na si President Duterte, when it came to PCR and the economy reopening, he stopped short of saying, "Oy, let's require the employers to pay for the PCRs." He said, "I strongly recommend it. I strongly urge it." Do you think that's good enough? Or do we in fact need to ensure na hindi, one way or the other, somebody has to pay? We understand that not everybody can afford it. What's a reasonable middle ground here?
Well, we think there's only one ground here, to do health technology assessment on that mode of testing, no? Because I mean, we have our opinions, no? Pero yung health technology assessment, they will have to review the body of literature on using rapid PCR in the workplace, no? And we see there's a lot of limitations to it. There are pros and cons. We need a formal, efficient, rapid technology assessment to advise government on whether this is a wise course of action.
Para isa lang yung tinitingnan kasi kung maraming nagsasabi, kaya tayo gulong-gulo. Ano ba dapat? No? Lalo na kasi decentralized yung ating health system. No? So, yung mga LGU natin, may karapatan silang magsabi kung ano mga pwedeng mangyari, maging patakaran sa bawat lugar nila. So, kaya nagkakaroon ng confusion. Kaya ngayon, importante na, yun ang sinasabi natin, bakit busy lahat. Nagmi-meeting sila sa ngayon, no? Talagang nag-coordinate na, even within the LGUs and even in Metro Manila area.
So you're not for banning the use of the rapid test na may 20% accuracy rate lang? I mean, kasi, iba yun yung parang everybody feels nga, why are we spending money and time on something that's, worse than the toss coin?
Yes.
I mean, yeah.
Ano yun na yan? So we've stopped writing about it. Kasi the point is, what led to that situation where everyone was using this test that had very poor performance. No? So we need to look for a system solution to that, di ba? And the system solution is health technology assessment. If we had that at that time, they would have reviewed the evidence and told us that this is not a useful test for diagnosing COVID-19. No? They would have told that to us in March, as early as March, because the evidence was already there at that time. And that's the problem. If we don't have an HTA process, ang science natin galing sa Facebook, galing sa Google, galing sa manufacturer, and so maraming commercial influences that will make decisions for us when in fact it should be the science on which our decisions are based.
Doctor, sabi ng after research, kapag nasunod daw yung mga health protocols and you are suggesting some measures, baka daw magkaroon na tayo ng near normal by Christmas. Do you share this opinion?
I'm not sure what your question is, Ami. Again, can you?
Sabi ng Octa Research, kapag sinunod daw yung mga health protocols plus you have some of your recommendations, baka daw posibleng magkaroon na tayo ng near normal by this Christmas. Do you share that opinion?
I think the science is evolving very fast. No? We have to be able to keep up with the science. Hindi pwedeng yung ginagawa natin ngayon, yun na yung gagawin natin hanggang December. No? And again, we hesitate to call yung issues na sinabi namin our recommendations. No? Kasi they were mutually developed plans, no? Considering the evolving science. And yes, if we keep up with the science, we can keep up with the virus. And we have a better chance of having a near normal Christmas at the end of the year.
Yung isang message na dapat matandaan natin, it's a new virus. So yung mga recommendations before, pwedeng nag-iiba yan, no? Depende sa recent developments sa research, no? So hindi dapat sisipin mo bakit recommendation dati nun huwag mag-mask. Dati ngayon nagma-mask na. So naguguluhan sila. Pero kasi importante nga na we're keeping up with science. So yung recommendations natin might change. So importante lang na hindi natin iba-iba. Dapat masusi bago tayo magkaroon ng recommendation.
Every 5 minutes may bagong research. That's really overwhelming. No other time in history was there an avalanche of knowledge like this. So everyone's overwhelmed.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Maraming salamat po. That was Doctors Antonio and Leonila Dans from the UP College of Medicine. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much
Thank you.
for hearing our plea. Thank you.
And we need to take a break. Please stay with us. The Chiefs will be right back.
Welcome back to the Chiefs. We're now in the final stage of our conversation. And now we'd like to welcome another professor from the University of the Philippines, this time from the College of Mass Communications, Professor Amor Olaguer-Aljibe. She teaches a new course in our alma mater, analysis on Korean drama. Welcome to the Chiefs, Professor
Hello,
Amor.
Dr. Amor.
Welcome.
Professor
Welcome po.
Good evening po.
Pwede pa bang mag-sign up as elective dyan sa class nyo? Merong may interesado, may interesado.
Annyeonghaseyo.
Meron
Annyeonghaseyo.
fan dito ng Korean drama in particular. Meron na siya talagang pinapanood yan. But anyway, when did this course start? Saka bakit naisipan to ng aming alma mater?
Okay, hindi po siya sa September 10 pa po ang start ng classes, so hindi pa po kami
So pwede pa
So actually, hindi pa po.
Humabol si Luchi.
Wala po.
Sige. Anyway, bakit po siya naisipang talaga? Well, we all know that they are very popular, no? Yung Korean dramas. Pero ano po yung reason?
Okay. Nag-umpisa po yun kasi as we all know, we're shifting to remote learning. Lahat po ng eskwelahan ay papunta sa remote learning. So, ang broadcast communication po ay madaming production courses. Kaya napilitan po kami, i-delay po muna yung ibang production courses since remote learning, mahirap pong magturo ng highly technical courses. So, I thought of suggesting courses na siguro hindi burdensome sa video equipment. Naisip ko isang course at naisip ko din po na siguro mas magiging maganda kung isang relevant na topic ang itatake namin, which for me is K-drama. So, bakit K-drama? Because
ano siya exactly? Analysis? Kung bakit ganun siya kapopular? Or you analyze actually the content ng mga the most popular dramas? Ganun ba yan?
Yes, we will analyze the content. So it's breaking down the elements. I'll be taking it up from the storytelling perspective. So in a way...
Yeah. Professor, can you give us the 1-minute syllabus and the insights on those elements? Bakit nga ba iba ang production ng K-drama? What are the elements that you see there that you think is good to break down and to share with the future of broadcasting in the Philippines?
Okay. I think because they are serious in utilizing the principles of writing and production techniques. Yung principles naman po ay universal. It's free. Lahat po yan ay able, we can use them. But I think yung K-drama, ginagamitan nila to ng principles of writing at they observe yung tamit ng production techniques. So, para po sa akin, it's very popular. And then, ang isa pa kasing reason, nag-break na kasi ang national boundary. So, everyday we consume is na hindi natin napapansin na major consumption na yung ginagawa ng mga tao. So, I think it's going to be interesting to, it's going to be interesting if we can take a look at this. Hindi po siya tungkol sa media theories, hindi rin po siya analysis ng genre, pero mas analysis po siya ng story elements. Maybe pupunta ako ng konti sa visual elements like mise-en-scène, but hindi po yun yung talagang focus. It's going to be the story elements. And I'll be talking about principles. Yun po yung pag-aaralan. So, meron po tayong...
Let me play the devil's advocate here. How would you convince parents na hindi to simpleng manonood lang yung mga yan ng drama tapos mag-enjoy lang yung mga yan tapos anong uuwi ng mga yan na learnings? Sabi mo may ganung mga parents na ano.
Professor, ano talaga yan? Pag sinabi niya na devil's advocate siya, kasi siya lang hindi nanonood ng K-drama dito.
In-depth nanood niya yung past.
Banda doon, banda.
Nanood niya yung...
Ay, hindi ako...
Ano po yung tanong? Paano po namin i-convince? Okay, siguro po sa mga... okay. Sa mga parents po siguro na hindi nanonood, pero would you believe ang nagre-request po sa akin, umaabot na sa mga nanay na mag-sit-in sa klase ko. Ganun na po kalawak yung request ngayon to audit my class.
Actually, well, sabi sa Facebook ang karamihan ng mga nanonood, mga moms. Kaya nga tita audience daw ang K-drama. Yeah. How true is that? What do you think? Of course, wala namang nagsasurvey. Pero parang mga kaedad ko nga yung mga naa-addict. Sorry Feeling ko lang.
Ako din na-surprise na nalaman ko ang dami nating estudyante who's into K-drama watching. In fact, yung iba as early as 15 years old. So medyo nagugulat ako ngayon sa information na nakukuha ko. Okay. Yeah. So primarily, ang intention ko dapat ay kung titingnan natin yung storytelling techniques. So nilalagay ko yung analysis doon or ang magbe-benefit ay yung audience, no? Since it's pandemic, gusto ko it's a fun way to learn. Hindi masyadong mabigat para sa estudyante na mag-iisip siguro ng mga teorya. At the same time, I'd like to equip the audience with a language, with a terminology, so they can analyze themselves. So they'll have an easier time expressing themselves na, why do I like a certain program? May ganun akong intention. Hindi na siguro yung level na, ba't mo siya gusto? Wala. Type lang, kilig. No? Pero ngayon, masasabi natin.
Maganda yung point nyo na it's about the story and as you said, it's universal and at the same time, it's free. So kumbaga, yung pag-uusapan nyo dito are elements na nasa kakayanan natin, nasa utak natin and so on. And this has nothing to do with, well, obviously, mas marami silang pera. Well, obviously, mas malaki budget na mga yan. This is not go to the budgets. It's really about the craft.
Yes, oo. Palagay ko sineryoso kasi ng South Korea. Isa siyang industriya at malaki yung government support nila. In fact, I've heard libre ang mga location. Kaya malaking kabawasan din kasi yun eh. Dahil galing din ako sa industriya ng pelikula. So may idea ako kung paano ang budget, kung gaano kalaki ang ginagastos. So imagine na lang natin kung may government support na libre yung location, malaki na siyang savings para sa producer at mailalagay niya yun sa ibang gasto siguro, no, sa paggawa ng pelikula. Kasi ito namang principles, existing siya noon pa. In fact, we can call it Aristotelian, di ba? Alam na natin yan. Ang isang principle ng classic storytelling ay may beginning, middle, and end. Pero kung paano gamitin tong beginning and middle and end sa pagsabi ng isang storya, yun yung dapat nating matutunan. In fact, may tinatawag na tayo ngayong non-linear form. Alam nyo to, pinapanood nyo to, at I'm sure kinikilig din kayo sa mga ganitong makabagong pagkwento ng storya. Dahil may mga storya na nag-uumpisa sa middle. Hindi siya necessarily nag-uumpisa sa beginning. Pero once hawak natin itong mga principles na to, padali na nating i-manipulate yung story chronology. Kaya sinasabi ko, hindi siya bago. Matagal na siya. Kaya lang siguro, ang South Korea, naging seryoso talaga silang tingnan ang paggamit nitong mga to. Kaya kitang-kita kasi yun yung gusto ko kasing alamin, no? Na habang nung nanonood ako, hindi rin po ako K-drama fan dati. Nag-umpisa lang akong manood nung pandemic, nung nagkaroon ng lockdown. Sinubukan kong manood ng isa, hanggang sa naging 2, hanggang sa naging 3. At nakita kong may pattern. So meron siyang recurring characteristics. So nung pinag-aralan ko ang mga K-dramang pinapanood ko, nakakita ako ng isang magandang paraan ng pag-analyze bakit nahuhook yung mga tao. Kasi hindi ko talaga maintindihan. They have, ang South Korea, ang K-drama, they've been producing classics and they've been producing repeat audiences. And that's very important to consider. Yung pag-sustain ng industriya nila ay nakasalalay talaga dito sa repeat audience. Ang mga examples na gagamitin ko sa aking klase, kung titingnan nyo, pinroduce noong 2014. Masyado na siyang matagal na panahon. Ang Chloe ay kailan pa pinroduce? 1 o 2 taon na yung nakakaraan. Pero hindi magbabago yung panonood natin, yung pagtingin natin, dahil meron siyang mga classical elements. And I think isa yun sa na-perfect nila. In fact, I can say K-drama is so Hollywood. It is so 3-act. And yet, kaya nilang magpalabas sa ibang paraan, ng isang makabagong paraan. Yun yung gusto ko kasing iparating din dun sa mga estudyante. There are several ways of storytelling. Kaya yung ginamit ko, parang may nagtanong sa akin sa isa kong interview, ano yung naging basis sa pagpili ko? Dahil napakaraming K-drama, napakaraming maganda, paano ako pumili at paano ako nag-arrive dun sa 3 lang ang pag-aaralan namin. Ang naging basihan ko ay yung structure. Kung familiar kayo sa Chloe, ito ay single protagonist and linear ang storytelling. Parang you have beginning, middle, and end. What about Chicago Typewriter? Ito ay isang example ng parallel narrative. So gusto kong mapunta yun sa consciousness ng mga estudyante ko. Pwede kang magkwento na may 2 kang journey na pinag-uusapan, may tumatakbo simultaneously na 2 naratibo, pero hindi ka malilito. Matutuwa ka, mag-e-enjoy ka. So, yung isa ay missing, ito din ay isang form ng parallel narrative, pero tinatawag siyang multi-protagonist, multi-antagonist. So, ito yung grupo, ang tinatawag nating protagonist. So, para madaling maintindihan, sasabihin natin na ito ay same team, same adventure. So, may mga terms na agad na tayong sinasabi ngayon, di ba? Parang mas madali yung pakikipag-usap, mas madali tayong nagkakaintindihan. Yun yung isa dun sa goal ko sa pagpapalabas ng K-drama. So, meron tayo ngayong 3 agad natutunan.
So,
Tingin ko,
limited
diba?
pa yung... limited yung vocabulary natin based on what we see. Now, if you were to, I mean, inevitably, of course, you compare it to our experience with Philippine K-dramas. How would you describe
Philippine K-dramas talaga?
Yung Filipino dramas, di ba? Telenovelas and so on. If you were to compare it there, how would you describe our vocabulary as we take it from how we would describe our experience with Philippine telenovelas?
Okay. So ito lang ay regarding dun sa vocabulary. Wala pa tayo sigurong analysis, no? Pagdating siguro ng production value and the like. I would say I cannot speak for other networks because before UP, nagtrabaho ako sa ABS-CBN at sa Star Cinema. And I was head of the training department of Star Cinema. So, isa to sa na-impart ko sa kanila, sa mga writers. So, hindi sila maninibago kapag siguro magbabagsak ako ng terms like protagonist, the darkest moment of the character, you have a second act turning point. Nagkakaintindihan na kami. You have the climax, we have the final climax, etc., etc. Diba? The principle of resistance and release, nagkakaintindihan kami. So pagdating siguro sa vocabulary, I can speak for the ABS-CBN writers and Star Cinema writers na dala na nila yon, alam na nila yon. But for other networks, hindi ko po alam.
Pero anong pagkakaiba? If you're going, is there any major difference between the Philippine and Korean telenovelas? Kasi bakit ito napaka-popular? Meron bang pagkakaiba o wala naman?
Ay, madami po.
Is there any major difference?
I believe we are all storytellers. Even you, I know you have your own story to tell. Pero how it is told, I think makes the difference. So, kung paano natin siya kinuwento, yun siguro yung malaking pagkakaiba. Pwede naman tayo lahat magkwento tungkol sa isa sigurong single parent, di ba? Na ang anak ay may mental health issue. Pwede naman pareho ang ating tema. Pero kung paano natin yung ikukwento, yun siguro yung magiging pagkakaiba. And I think yun yung gusto kong mapag-aralan namin at i-discover. Yung storytelling ng K-drama, paano siya nagiging epektibo. So pag pinpoint siguro at pag-breakdown ng mga episodes, malalaman namin yon. Palagay ko, lilitaw yon. Using the principles as I've mentioned as guide. Dahil habang ako ay nanonood, naka-identify na agad ako. Ang dami kong aha moments nung nanonood ako. So parang, okay, wow, okay, yun pala. Diba? So may maiintindihan mo na ang mga ginagamit nila sigurong paraan ng pagkukwento ay napaka-effective. Kaya sinasabi ko nga, ang difference ay nasa storytelling techniques. So kung sila ay naging successful doon, bakit hindi natin pag-aralan? This is not about copying or replicating K-dramas. But I think it's about being able to pinpoint the principles that were used. And from there, I think we can improve our storytelling.
An example, something specific na pagkakaiba. Halimbawa kami, may napansin kami. Bakit yung mga scene doon masyadong underplayed, lalo dun sa Chloe, di ba? That's unusual sa mga pelikula natin actually. Parang hindi naman repressed, kaya lang tone down yung ganong mga scenes. Does that make any difference?
Mas stricto yung censors board nila eh. Hindi. No, I know it. I know it for a fact. Yeah. Mas stricto sila. So, hindi.
Meron naman. Anything specific?
Meron silang censorship board. Very strict.
Professor, an aha moment, as you said, meron kayong mga aha moment. Give us one aha moment.
Specific lang.
Okay. I think yung isa siguro yung paggamit nila ng setup. So it might appear as a coincidence, but then pag bumalik tayo dun sa mga previous scenes, makikita natin yung link. In fact, they're creating a world which is, they make the world protagonist so small. Napansin niyo ba yun?
Yes.
Halimbawa, ay yung isa ay pala hindi nanonood K-drama. Manood na po kayo.
Sino
hindi?
Galing lang yun. Kilala mo
yung Devil's Advocate. Okay, so as I was saying, isa pong technique nila, pansin ko, pareho, yung pong mundo ng protagonist ay maliit. Ano yung ibig kong sabihin? May relation po.
Nagbe-break up si Professor.
Okay, ako lang.
Kung nanood ng drama, I think makarelate. So si Captain Rhee, siguro makikita natin, di ba, dun sa Chloe, medyo i-discuss ko na yung Chloe, parang bonus na to sa mga estudyante ko. Pero yung pong sa Chloe, makikita natin si Captain Bawa po, yung isang lumigaw kay Seri, di ba, naging isang antagonist, ay connected po dun sa half-brother ni Seri, sa kumpanya, at ang naging girlfriend po ni Captain Rhee, ay nagkita na po sila dati ni Seri sa Europe. Lumiliit po yung mundo. Parang pagbabalikan na po natin yung mga naunang eksena, makikita po natin yung connection. Pero hindi siya lumalabas na coincidence dahil gumagamit po sila ng isang element known as setup. So properly set up po yung mga eksena. Hindi po tayo nagugulat, di ba? Kasi halimbawa may isang character na may character na lumabas, tapos sasabihin natin, saan ang galing? Kasi sa experience ko po sa...
Sorry, no? But something more basic than, parang iniisip ko lang, no? Parang even before we get and I know this is not necessarily part of the class that you will teach, but even before we get to the storytelling, and even before we get to the format or the form of the story, there's a fundamental difference with the business here, di ba? Which is that we're not story centered. Our telenovelas are not story centered. We are star centered. We're driven. The fan base is built around personalities and stars, not even characters. Ang isang napansin ko is I like the stories in K-dramas, and I'm not necessarily a fan of each and every star. Pero dito, that's a very fundamental difference. Even before we get to a discussion about what's the form of the story, maganda ba yung plot, and so on. But the business here seems to me na it's not even story centered. It really revolves around personalities. It revolves around artistas.
Okay. Ano po yung question?
Ang question ko lang is, AB, how do you incorporate that into a discussion about, kumbaga, you're going to have writers of the future who want to do their stuff and who really want to do this really well. And I imagine even the writers at the present have that dilemma. They have the vocabulary for it. They have the artistry and the craft. They've dissected the stories. But then they papasok sila sa industriya na hindi naman story ang habol namin eh. Ang habol naman namin talaga is we have the stars. And even with a flimsy story, we can have a hit anyway.
Hindi po sa pag-defend ko siguro sa ABS or sa Star Cinema. May dalawa po kasi kami nung ginagawang storya. Isa ay, we call them givens, di ba? So isa ay given po ang cast. Ang isa po ay walang cast. So we also encourage the development of stories na wala pong cast na naka-assign kaagad. In fact, mas ang given po ay genre. Kasi kung titingnan niyo po ang Star Cinema, umiikot lang siya sa kakaunting genre. We have horror, we have romance. So yung romance, either drama or romance comedy. Na pag tinignan nyo, ganun din naman yung genre na iniikutan lang ng K-drama. Pero siguro, pagdating dun sa storya, ako naniniwala ako at nag-a-agree po ako sa inyo na kakaiba talaga yung mga storya nila. Paligay ko dahil nakakabit din sila sa kanilang kultura. At kasi para sa akin, personally, hindi po ako, I don't go for adaptation of K-drama materials. Kasi para sa akin, dapat pa rin mag-push tayo ng original idea. What we can get from them, as I've mentioned, are the principles. Hindi po yung retelling of their story. At napansin ko din kasi sa K-drama, may tapang sila. If you're familiar with some of the titles I will mention, may tapang. Kasi may issue laging kinakabit, maski na romance comedy pa yung kanyang genre. For example, Pinocchio is about news ethics.
Yun, napanood ko yun.
Misty is, may patama.
I think, if I may, I think, Robbie, the secret also is that they run by 16-episode seasons. So, alam mo na kaagad na matatapos siya after 12 or 16 or 20. Dito kasi, araw-araw for years. So, talagang makikita mo kung saan-saan na napupunta yung storya. And that's why it has to be, I think, personality-driven, or actor-driven. Sila, 16 eh. So dapat yung storya makwento mo within the 16 episodes. Diba?
I think kailangan maging lecturer rin si Chief.
But that's a good point kasi iniisip ko rin yan. For example, you take Provinciano, you take the basic model, as you said, yung beginning, the middle, and the end. You watch Provinciano and you have something as basic as that. It's like, walang ending to. Walang kamatayan to, anli tong si Provinciano. So even that whole sense of meron bang patutunguhan tong storyang to is a totally different conversation that you're going to have over a Philippine property versus, as you said, tama ka, Luchi, I expect na uy, matatapos na to, dalawang episode na lang, paano natatapusin to, ang gulo-gulo pa, and so on.
Yun.
Yes, I agree. At isa po din siyang factor para mas maging maayos yung production dahil kompleto na yung material bago nila shoot. So, walang changes na mangyayari sa script. Lahat ay magiging guided by the script, even the actors, even the acting of the actors, even the production value. Isa din kasi yun reason kung bakit din siguro mataas yung production value nila kasi fix na yung budget. Alam na ng producer kung saan talaga dadalhin yung pera para matapos yung 16 episodes. In fact, sila yung nagpauso ng 16 episodes dahil noon ang definition ng isang season ay 13 episodes
13,
lang.
yes. Right.
Yun yung Western na definition at sinusunod natin noon. Sila lang yung nagpahaba talaga. Kaya pag sinabi nating maiksi,
Wala siya.
Mm-hmm.
Yung kay Pablo Escobar.
drama ko yung dahil sisinagin natin.
Yeah.
Sa ibang bansa, umaabot ng 60 episodes.
Na 30 episodes. Susunod na tayo lang.
Yeah. Well, spread over several seasons naman yun.
Hindi, one season yung Pablo Escobar na
yung 60. Hindi, over...
Zero.
Parang spread over several seasons.
One season. Sobra, inabot ng 60. Hindi na nakapagsalita si Ed. Talaga hindi nanonood ng South Korea.
Nahihirapan to. Nag-i-stutter yung internet ko.
Ed, mag-enroll sa class na to. Wala. Incomplete to. 5 to. 5.
I-enroll ka namin dyan, Ed.
My internet's quirky. I can hear you guys sometimes and sometimes I can't. Anyway, I think we're going overtime already. Maraming salamat kay Professor Amor Olaguer-Aljibe ng College of Mass Communications ng UP. Ma'am Gamsa Hamida.
Ayun. Bumawi.
Okay.
Maraming salamat. Wala pong anuman. Kung mag-enroll lang po kayo, makikipag-compete po kayo sa 300 po na estudyante. Kasi ganun kadami ngayon yung nagpapalista para sa
virtual naman to, di ba ma'am? Di ba online naman to? Pwede pang makisilip na lang sa Zoom link.
Basta po may uble link kayo kasi yun yung LMS na gagamitin po. Iaalaw po kayo na
Oh my God.
Sige. Okay.
Thank you po.
Maraming salamat po.
Salamat din po.
Kamusta lang kay Ted?
Yes. Okay.
Luchi, kukusa ka na ng slot. Wala ka na slot.
301 ka, Luchi.
Excuse me, expert na ako.
Master siyang PhD. Yes.
Magiging consultant siya.
Correct.
And when you think about it, she only started watching K-drama during the pandemic.
Oo, talaga. Talaga.
But marami naman Diba, marami naman Pilipino talaga. I mean, really, obviously, Chloe was a gateway drug for a lot of people, and then you really fall into this rabbit hole over Netflix, over View, over so many properties.
Rabbit hole talaga.
Kaya umamin ka na, Ed. Kilala mo yung mga content.
Ano ang meaning ko? Napanood ko pa lang Chloe tsaka yung Descendants of the Sun.
Okay. So,
Well, yeah, there was a point there naman na may parang ingay, parang mas wabi lang yung kanilang coincidence.
Yes. Hindi
Mas wabi lang the way they put it in, they stick it in.
Yeah, but really, tama ka, Luchi, the promise of a fixed season. And I didn't realize that. Maganda yung point niya, no? The fact na may fixed season, malinaw yung expectation, malinaw yung promise, and then all the way to production. Oo nga, no? Malinaw na yung budget. Diba?
Yes. Totoo. Yeah.
ang gusto daw niya, yung tubusan.
Okay, tama na, manonood pa tayong lahat ng K-drama.
Oo nga.
Hindi K-drama yung tubusan. Gusto niya yung part 2, may part 2 na.
Meron.
Netflix drama yon, horror.
Horror yan.
Ay, movie yun, movie.
Movie yan.
Pero yung part
Hindi
2
yun
medyo incredible lang yung ending eh.
Nakatama ka lang.
okay.
Yung
Huwag na pag-usapan, hindi pa pala lumalabas.
yung part 1 hindi incredible ah. Yung part 1 hindi incredible.
Hindi, mas incredible yung part 2. Mas incredible yung part 2.
Okay.
Anyway, sige. Parang yung part 2 medyo pilit eh. But anyway, sige, let's not talk about it. We're not supposed to be talking about it yet. Okay. And that will be all for this special edition of the Chiefs. Special because of K-drama and all these other topics. Wala akong sinabing ganun. Wala akong sinabing ganun. We hope what was discussed here will keep the conversation going.
Ed Lingaw.
I'm Ed Lingaw.
You're Ed Lingaw.
I'm Coming One of the Philippine Star.
I'm Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5.
I'm Robbie Alampay and we are One News.